Hello everyone, this is Aspirants Frequency. We have been discussing the economic survey of this financial year 2023-24 in a series. In this video we are going to see the third chapter, that is the prices and inflation, which have been discussed in this economic survey. Those who are new to the video, I kindly recommend to watch the previous two chapters of 1 and 2, where I have also explained the basics of economic survey, that is the what it is and why it is, then who releases it, when it is released, how useful for our UPSC and other state public service explanation public services, and also the flow of study which I am taking forward. I kindly recommend to you, and I will also pin the video links in the description, kindly to watch it. Let's get into the chapter. In this chapter they have discussed about the prices and inflation. uh, as usual, I have classified it into the concepts and the data and organization and the schemes which are discussed in this chapter. First, inflation. Basically, we all know that the general rise in prices of goods is basically said as the inflation. The inflation are like two types, that is the cost push inflation, which is a supply side measure, and there is a demand pull inflation, which is the demand side. For example, if people are demanding a particular good, to say for example a TV, if there is more demand for a particular good, there will be a more price rise for that particular TV. So there is a demand pull inflation. Then the cost plus push inflation is a supply chain inflation. For example, if there is a rise of 10 kgs, there is a demand for 10 kgs, but the supply is only 5 kgs from the supply side due to some external calamities or some any other reasons. So because of the lesser demand, lesser supply, there will be a rise in prices. So it's a supply side inflation, that's cost push inflation. Coming to this, the core inflation, how which is measured, basically the total inflation is called as the headline inflation, and there are food inflation, then core inflation. These are the three types of inflation, that is core inflation, headline inflation, and food inflation. Simply put, core inflation is the measure of headline inflation subtracted by the food, fuel, and light inflation. These are like consumer non-durable goods, to say simply. Let's decode it after in the further concepts. Simply, just know you have already known that, so let's see simply. Then the policy rate control, then the inflation targeting. You also know that the monetary policy committee sets a target of 4% plus or minus 2 as the inflation targeting measure. Then the policy rate control through policy rates like the repo rate. By adjusting the repo rates and the policy rates, the inflation is controlled. For example, if there is high inflation, the repo rate is increased, so there is a less money supply, so the inflation is getting controlled. Then the core goods, like the core inflation is measured with the core goods. Here I didn't have mentioned the services. Services is also the core services. The core goods is divided into core durables and the core non-durables. Durables are like whichever goods which are lasting for more than greater than 3 years are known as the durable goods. For example, electronics, furniture. And the non-durables are the food, fuel, and light. Like basically the energy supplies are the core non-durables. Core services are like the technology services, then the software services. These are some of the core services. Then the food inflation factors are basically the supply side factors, that the supply chain, then the input factors of the farmers. These are some of the factors which influences the food inflation. Then the minimum export price concept is discussed here. To basically, the minimum export price is fixed by the government to for various reasons. For example, when mainly there is less supply of goods, particular good. For example, consider rice. for there is a less supply of rice in the domestic market, then you can't allow for the more export of that particular product, to say rice. So to augment the demand of the domestic market, you are putting a minimum export price. This is a PVQ question, some in the previous year prelims question. The minimum export price you are setting, for example, a kg of rice should be minimum 500 rupees if you have to export it. So it's basically a constraint putting on the sellers for exporting the particular product, and also to control the inflated price of the particular product. For exporting there is a two for importing there is two categories: the prohibited category and free category goods. For this is for imported goods. In the prohibited category, you have to import only a particular limit fixed by the government. In free category, you can import unlimited category of goods. I mean unlimited quantity of goods. Then the price stabilization fund. Price stabilization fund is generally a fund created to augment the rise in prices. The price stabilization fund is announced. This is a central sector scheme decided by the government. This is basically by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Then the MSP concept, as this is the minimum support price, which is provided to the farmers as a basic assurance for crop production. Minimum support price. This it is given to the 23 crops. The classification is very important, especially for the mains, based on the season, like the kharif crops, rabi crops, then the other crops. Kharif crops includes there are 12 kharif crops, then the rabi crops there are 6 rabi crops, then other crops like some of the cash crops, then FRP crop, that is sugarcane. FRP crop, it's like basically to say MSP is provided for 22 crops. Then FRP, which is the fair and remunerative price, is provided for sugarcane. It's somewhere included into MSP, so there is a 23 crop classification. Then the crop variety is completely it's more important, like how many crops are millets, then how many crops are pulses, then how many crops are pulse seeds, then how many oil seeds, then how many are staple crops. These are some. I have provided this classification below. Like the kharif crops, there are around 12 kharif crops, then 6 rabi crops, then other crops which I have mentioned here. I have also classified into millets, staple, pulses and oil seeds. The jowar, bajra, ragi and these three are millets which are grown in the kharif crop. Then the staple crops are paddy, maize. In rabi season it's wheat and barley. Then moong dal, urad dal, tur dal are pulses. Then the rabi season gram and lentils are in the rabi season pulses. Then the oil seeds like soya, sunflower, sesame and groundnut. All the S crops, the soya, sunflower, sesame are all kharif crops. Then the mustard and rapeseed are rabi crop. Then cotton and niger seed. Then the jute and copra. These are the other cash crops which are provided the MSP. Then the sugarcane, which is a FRP, fair and remunerative price, is provided. Then the producers price index, it's like we are measuring the CPI, WPI, then PPI. PPI is not basically in the wide perspective used in the Indian economy. CPI and WPI are used. CPI is not CPI, you know that it's the consumer price index. Then the WPI is the wholesale price index. Consumer price index is basically from the rise in prices from the consumer's perspective. Then WPI is the wholesale rise in prices from the seller's perspective. Like for example, the wholesale retailers who are getting their products in a wholesale manner, they from their point of view considering how much general rise in prices are met by them. So it's the wholesale price index. The CPI is released by the MOSPI, that's Ministry of Statistics and and Program Implementation. WPI is from the Office of Economic Advisor from the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, which is more important. Then the same time producer price index is like it's another aspect of considering the rise in prices from the point of view of the producers. who are producing a particular good. For example, if a farmer who is producing a rice, from his point of view, what are the general rise in prices of reasons, like the input costs rises, labor cost, then mechanization cost. These are the cost general rise in prices from the producer's perspective, for example, for farmer's perspective. So it's basically to know the intermediary inflation. For example, in WPA, in PPA, then CPA. If this is from the producer, this is from the retailer or seller, then this is from the consumer's perspective. Primarily, it is from you are getting the point from data from the PPA. You can directly know how much intermediary cost from the producer to the consumer it is reaching, how much the prices are rises in the intermediary stages. It's basically to control the intermediary inflation or hoarding of goods through illegal manner. To curb this, the producer price index is widely used. In US, it's used as the producer price index is used widely in replaceable manner of WPA. In India, it's also sometimes measured, but not widely used. Then coming to the data and organizations, we have the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. It's simply the during the COVID-19, the government announced supporting the farmers and poor families to provide food grains through PDS systems. It's benefiting around 81 crore beneficiaries. Then the edible oil, it's like to improve the oil palm cultivation. Government is introducing several measures because around 57% of the edible oil or palm oil which we are importing today, so it's significantly impacting our forex reserves. Around like some 25 point some billion dollars are spent on this palm oil, so it's significantly impacting the forex reserve. For this, the government has introduced the NMEO-OP, that is the National Mission for Oil Palm, National Mission for Edible Oil and Oil Palm. So it's basically like to improve the oil palm cultivation in the particular geographical area. For example, it's the palm oil are mostly grown in the Indonesian and the tropical regions. In India, some of the areas which are basically in oil palm cultivation are Andhra Pradesh and some tropical countries in the southern states, and the northeastern part. The northeastern states are viable for the oil palm cultivation because of their uh, high it's a high water efficient crop, and also it requires a favorable climate which is present in the northeastern region. So through this mission, government is planning to introduce more palm oil cultivation in the northeastern region. Then the open market sale, is simply the selling of the buffer stocks excess buffer stocks of grains in the open market. It's also generally to reduce the prices and control the inflation, and to reduce the excess hoarding of basic goods. It's done by the FCI Food Corporation of India. Then the Bharat Rice, Bharat Atta are some of the products which are sold by the government at a subsidized price to help the poor families. There is also Bharat Dal and some other categories of areas produced. I think that's it for this video. It's a small chapter though, so I will recommend you to those who are new to the channel, just read the chapter, read the economic survey once, then you can suffice with this one page notes, so it will be very useful for your faster revision and active recalling. Thank you.